Ladies and gentlemen, capital G here, bringing you the unlikely duo of Kaidel, chosen of Krufix, and her partner for today, Rograkh, son of Rograkh. And not only did I challenge myself with an interesting pairing of partners, but I've also challenged myself on this list by making something at least as close to cEDH as my talents would allow. And I'm pretty sure I'm knocking on the door, and just a couple of card swaps will bring it to where it needs to be. So let's start by having a closer look at our commanders, shall we? Let's start with Rograkh since we've got him highlighted already. 0-1 for 0 mana. Legendary Kobold Warrior, and it is a red creature. Has first strike, menace, and trample. And of course has partner, so you can partner it openly with any other commander that has partner. Now a lot of people in more casual circles play sort of more of a Voltron style with him because look at all those keywords. But I also see a 0 mana commander that interacts with a lot of really cool cards. Kaidel, on the other hand, long established as a bit of a mana powerhouse. A green, a blue, and 2 generic gives us a 2/3 human wizard. And we can tap her to add a generic mana for each card we've drawn over the course of the turn. So the name of the game is draw a bunch of cards, tap, untap, tap, untap Kaidel, a whole bunch in order to generate stupid amounts of mana, and using one of our win conditions, burn out the rest of the table. That's our game plan. And in order to power out the card draw and of course get Kaidel out as quickly as possible and protect her, that's where Rograkh, being a 0 mana commander, helps us out. So let's start by going through our main deck here. Of course, 3 colors, so running the Arcane Signet. Chrome Mox, of course we're going to cEDH territory, so we definitely want to get as much mana out in the table as possible, and Chrome Mox helps us do that. We can, when this enters the battlefield, we can exile a non-artifact, non-land card from our hand, and then we can tap this to add 1 mana of any of the exiled card's colors. Running Coveted Jewel, which is not necessarily a cEDH card, but it does have some good synergies here. I've been putting this in a lot of my builds recently because it's such an interesting card. 6 mana for this artifact that can tap for 3 mana of any 1 color we wish, and when this enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. So we do have some synergies here. Ideally, the turn we play this is the turn we want to win the game, so I'm not too worried about creatures attacking me. The Failed Warstone, we're running 3 colors, 3 popular colors, so it should be pretty easy to tap this for a mana that we can use. Isochron Scepter, this is going to be part of one of our win conditions. 2 mana, imprint a instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from our hand, and we can pay 2 and tap this to copy the exile card, and if we do, cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Jeweled Lotus, this lets us get Kaidel out as early as turn 1, as long as we have a red or green source untapped on our first turn. Jeweled Lotus can bring us Kaidel right away. Lightning Greaves for the haste. Mana Crypt, 0 mana artifact, taps for 2 generic. And of course, every upkeep we have to flip a coin, and we might take some damage if we lose that flip. Mox Amber, now this works beautifully with Rograkh, because Rograkh comes out at 0, so does the Mox Amber. This can now tap for a red right off the hop. Of course, once we get Kaidel out, then this can also tap for a blue or a green at that point in time. Skull Clamp, another cool synergy of Rograkh, having a creature in the command zone that we can put out, dirt cheap, equip, and draw cards. And it doesn't take a lot of card draw, honestly, to set Kaidel off. I'll detail that as we go forward. The Soul Ring, of course. Soul Guide Lantern. Lots of cool things. This lets us exile a card from a graveyard, so if we need something gone, this does it. We can tap and sack to exile each opponent's graveyard for running into reanimation strategies. Take them out. Or we can pay 1 tap and sacrifice this to draw a card. Spring Leaf Drum, another cool synergy of Rograkh. This comes out for 1 mana. Rograkh comes out for 0. Now we can tap this and our Rograkh to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. Staff of Domination, key win con of the deck. For 3 mana, this artifact can be untapped by paying 1 generic. By paying 2 and tapping this, we can gain life. By paying 3 and tapping this, we can untap a creature. So imagine we get to a point where we can tap Kaidel for 5 mana. So we tap her, we have 5. Pay 3, untap Kaidel. Pay 1, untap the staff. We have 1 left over. Infinite mana combo. Eventually we can use, we can build up the mana we need to draw out all the cards we need in our deck, using the 5 tap draw card ability. Umbral Mantle, similar idea here. This 3 mana artifact equipment equips for 0, which is pretty cool. And for 3 and untapping a creature, this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So the idea here is that if we can tap Kaidel for as little as 4 mana, and we have the Umbral Mantle out, equip the Umbral Mantle, and it's tap on tap, gaining a mana every time. And even if we can't dump that mana anywhere, well, we've also just made an infinitely huge Kaidel now, haven't we? We can at least knock somebody out with commander damage if the opening is there. Moving on to some creatures, Arbor Elf untaps a forest. We're going to be running a lot of non-basic lands that happen to have the forest type, so why not? Birds of Paradise taps for all our colors. Bloom Tender, another excellent synergy with Rograkh. As it's a green creature, Rograkh's a red creature. So as soon as we're able to tap this, we can tap it for at least 2 mana consistently, and 3 mana once we have Kaidel out. And we say 2 and 3 mana, it's 1 mana for each color amongst permanents we control. The Dockside Extortionist, of course. Many of our opponents will be running artifacts and enchantments, so let's take advantage of that to get some ramp for us. The Hull Breacher. We do have a couple of Windfall style effects in the deck. I'll get to that shortly. But hey, if our opponents can't draw an answer to our board state, that's what it's more here for, stopping the card draw. Yes, we get the treasures too, and that helps us with some of our mana cost, but it's mostly about making sure our opponents don't draw into too many cards or draw into an answer against us. Curious Follower, you can tap this to untap another permanent. So any permanent, it can be a land, it can be a creature, it can be one of our artifacts, whatever we need. We do need some mana dumps, so running both Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and Kozilek, the Great Distortion. The nice thing about both of these Kozileks is that they draw us additional cards. So in the case of Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, on casting the spell, we draw 4 cards. It doesn't matter if Kozilek is ultimately countered or not. If it's not, hey, Annihilator 4, 12/12. We're going to start knocking people out with this. And if it ever ends up into a graveyard, ends up at a graveyard, we get to shuffle it back into our library. For Kozilek, the Great Distortion, also 12/12 with Menace, we draw cards equal, so as it says here, if we have fewer than 7 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So we might have just 2 cards in hand when we cast this, draw back up to 7, and all of a sudden the rest of our hands basically become free counter spells. Running the Sea Dasher Octopus, a nice little synergy of Rograkh. We can mutate for a blue and 1 generic onto Rograkh and have a 2/3 basic. Basically, we're going to have a 2/2 with all the keywords and lets us draw cards whenever we deal combat damage to a player. Thrasios, Triton Hero, the ultimate mana dump. Once we go infinite, if we have Thrasios around, we basically get to draw out our whole deck. The Trophy Mage, this can search out our key 3 mana artifacts. Both the Umbral Mantle and Staff of Domination can be tutored out with Trophy Mage. The Vizier of Tumbling Sands, 3 mana 1/3, we can tap it to untap another permanent, or we can cycle it, and when we cycle it, we get to untap target permanent. Walking Ballista, this is the win con, of course. We get to infinite mana, drop a Walking Ballista. Comes in with as many +1 counters as we need to ping out the table. Moving on to enchantments, we have exploration. We may play an additional land on each of our turns. This was one of the later editions. I found that it's pretty easy to run out of colored mana in this deck, so with exploration it lets us play more lands more quickly. Mind over matter, one of the key untaps. If we manage to be able to repeatedly draw cards, we can use Mind over matter's ability to discard a card and tap or untap an artifact, creature, or land. Old school win condition, this one. The quad blue is actually fairly easy to achieve. Mystic Remora is here for some early game card draw. If I just happen to have it in my opening hand, cast it turn 1, maybe keep it for turn 2, and should be able to more than replace itself over those first 2 turns. Don't generally want to keep it longer than that, though. I am running the Mystic. I am not running the... What's the other one? Mystic Remora. You know, the one where everyone has to pay 1. Do you want to pay 1 for that? Do you want to pay 1 for that? Honestly, I just couldn't... I felt that was actually too slow for what I wanted to do here. Sylvan Library. Really cool synergy. It doesn't matter if we keep the cards or not, because this lets us draw 3 cards. Then for each card beyond the first we keep in our hand, we pay 4 life or put it back on top of our library. So even if the cards go back on top of our library, we still drew all those cards. So Kaidel counts them. Lots of instants, as we want to be able to interact with our opponents whenever needed. So we have a Braid to deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy an artifact. We have Barrier Breach. We can cycle this away for a card, or we can exile up to 3 target enchantments. Bolt Bend. This spell costs 3 less to cast if you control a creature of power 4 or greater. Really, that's going to be the causal X. Change target of a single... change target spell or ability with a single target. There's a lot more targeted removal in cEDH from what I gather, so Bolt Bend will be quite powerful here. Also works as an effective counter spell. Brainstorm, of course, 1 blue, draw 3 cards, so Kaidel counts all 3 cards that we drop, then put 2 cards from our hand back on top of our library. I don't care, Kaidel sees us drawing 3 cards. Comet Storm, another place for us to dump our mana and burn out the table. So red X with multi-kicker. Choose any target, then choose another target for each time the spell was kicked. Deal X damage to each of them. So yeah, you know, for the low price of 45 mana, we can burn out the entire table. And this deck can get there. Deflecting Swat. Hey, we have a 0-cost commander, so it's pretty easy to be able to cast this spell for free and choose new targets for any spell or ability that we need to change over. Dispel, 1 blue, counter an instant. Dramatic Reversal. This, of course, goes on to the Isochron Scepter. With it, we can pay a blue and 1 to untap all non-land permanents we control. That includes our mana rocks I can tap for colored mana, and that includes our commander. So if Kaidel taps for as little as 3 generic mana, we get infinite mana off of Kaidel and the Dramatic Reversal Scepter combo alone. Fierce Guardianship, again, a 0-cost commander. So it is very easy to get this free negate effect going. Frantic Search, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands, and make Kaidel happy. Bolt. I took a look. There's a lot of targets that this thing takes down. 1 red mana. That's pretty efficient if you ask me. Long-term plans. These colors are not so great at tutoring the cards that I need to win the game. So with effect like long-term plans, we can put our win condition 3rd carved from the top of our library. And of course, our deck should, in theory, run enough card draw in order for us to get it quickly. This works especially well with Sylvan Library, I want to add. Mana Drain, of course, the best counter spell in the game. Blue, counter any spell, and we get colorless mana equal to that spell's converted mana cost at the beginning of our next main phase. Metamorphose, this powerful or at least used to be powerful, modern staple. Green and 1, add 2 mana in any combination of colors, and draw a card. Mystical Tutor, search our library for an instant or sorcery, put it on top of our library. Nature's Claim, a staple in the cEDH format. For 1 green, take out any artifact or enchantment. Yes, its controller gains 4 life. No, we don't care. Pongnify, destroy creature, it gets a 3/3 ape. Pull from Tomorrow, blue and X, draw X cards, then discard a card. In theory, this will help us draw enough cards for Kaidel to go off. Shredded Sails, for 2 mana, we can destroy an artifact, deal 4 damage to a flying creature, because we don't really run a lot of flyers in our deck, or we can cycle it away. So for 2 mana, we have a lot of options here. Swan Song, 1 blue, counter an instant, sorcery, or enchantment spell. They get a 2/2 flyer, we don't care. Valakut Awakening, we can play this as a land, the Valakut Stoneforge, if we absolutely must. The land is not coming up on my app for whatever reason. However, the Valakut Awakening, very powerful instant in its own right. For a red and 2, put any number of cards in our hand in the bottom of our library, then draw that many cards +1. So it replaces itself alongside the cards that we shuffle underneath. And of course, this helps feed Kaidel. Display of My Dark Power is not in the deck, so let's figure out what happened there. Wilt is in the deck. Destroy an artifact or enchantment, or we can cycle it away. So 2 mana for the destroy target artifact or enchantment effect is a little pricey, but the fact that we can cycle this away and feed Kaidel makes it worth playing. 29 lands. I am not actually very comfortable running this few lands, but I found that it's surprisingly easy to, still play the deck with this few lands, 29 lands plus a couple of the flip lands. Of course, being cEDH, we're running some of the best lands possible, including Arid Mesa. One of the fetches, in this case, go get a Mountain or a Plains card. It does not have to be basic. The Breeding Pool, of course, Forest Island. One of our many shocks. Cascade Bluffs. I chose to run these filter lands primarily because I want to be able to cast Mind Over Matter. So I could pay a red or a blue to get double blue out of the Cascade Bluffs. City of Brass pings us every time we tap it for mana, or every time it becomes tapped in general. That's fine. It's perfect mana fixing, as is our command tower. Flooded Grove, same as the Cascade Bluffs. Forbidden Orchard, yes, we're giving away 1/1 creatures. No, we don't care. This gives us all the mana we need. 2 basic forests, 1 gemstone mine. Yes, we only get to use this 3 times, but a cEDH game is generally fast enough that this doesn't matter. I would be surprised if we ever use this 3 times, unless it's the first land of the game that we play. Hinterland Harbor enters the battlefield tapped unless we control a forest or island, but it taps for both those colors. I chose to go with these Czech lands, I believe they're called. 1 basic island, a Carplusian Forest, so I'm running the Pain lands as well. Ketria Triumph, we can cycle it away for 3 mana, or we have a land that taps for all of our colors. This does enter the battlefield tapped, however. There may be instances we can tutor it out and we don't care that it comes in tapped. Misty Rainforest, go get a forest or island card. 1 basic mountain, 1 polluted delta, go get an island or swamp, in this case an island. Rootbound Crag, the Scalding Tarn for an island or mountain card. Shivan Reef, running a snow-covered forest, snow-covered island, and a snow-covered mountain. Running a Steam Vents, of course, Stomping Ground, Sulphur Falls, Windswept Heath, Wooded Foothills, and Yavimaya Coast. I did originally have Field of the Dead in the deck, which is why I was running both the snow-covered and regular basic lands. That may no longer be necessary. You can probably just run regular basics. 1 Planeswalker in Cura, Master of the Depths. This 4 mana, 4 loyalty planeswalker untaps a creature and a land, which is good because that helps us with color fixing later on in the combo if we need it. Or if we need to draw an extra card, we can use the -2 and reveal the top 4 cards of our library. Put a creature or land card from among them into our hand. Not using the -2 so much as we don't have a lot of lands and we don't have a lot of creatures. But in a pinch, we have the option. -8, we're never going to get there. 14 sorceries, including Cathartic Reunion. This is the only one of these I'm running. I'm not running the ones that, pitch 1, draw 2, because drawing 3 is what really feeds Kaidel. So Cathartic Reunion is the perfect card for this situation. A red and 1, discard 2 cards, draw 3. Faithless Looting for 1 red, draw 2 cards, and discard 2 cards, and we can flash it back. Farseek, go get a plains, island, swamp, or mountain. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. Git Probe for 2 life, we can cycle it away. That's all it's here for, 2 life, cycle it away. Nature's Law, go get a forest card, put it onto the battlefield, shuffle our library. Note that it doesn't say tapped. So we can bring in a forest card untapped, or we can bring in our non-basic forests and pay the 2 life and have them untapped. Overmaster. Not only is this a 1 red draw card, so it's 1 red cantrip, but the next instant or sorcery spell we play this turn cannot be countered by spells or abilities. So if we cast Overmaster, chances are we're trying to win the game, and this is a good way to fish out a counter spell, because if they don't counter the Overmaster, then they wouldn't have had an answer anyways for what we're doing. If they do counter the Overmaster, like I said, we pull the counter spell out of somebody's hand with this. Rampant Growth, go get one of our basics. Reforge the Soul, this is an excellent target for the Mystical Tutor, because we can put this right on top of our library, draw it, and play it for its miracle cost. Each player discards a hand, draws 7, Kaidel gets happy. Seagate Restoration. This can be played as Seagate Reborn. Let's see if this wants to work for me this time. There it is. So we can have it enter the battlefield untapped by paying 3 life. Or we can simply cast it for triple blue and 4, which is very much doable in this deck. Draw cards equal to the number of cards on our hand plus 1, and we no longer have a maximum hand size for the rest of the game. So this basically doubles our hand size, and we get to draw into our win condition. 3 visits, go get a forest card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle our library. Again, we can go get our non-basic forests and shock ourselves so they come in untapped. Treasure Cruise, essentially for 1 blue mana, we draw 3 cards. Vandal Blast, destroy an artifact we don't control for 1 red, or destroy them all for 5 mana total. All the artifacts that we don't control. Wheel of Fortune, each player discards a hand, draws 7. Windfall, each player discards a hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So both Wheel of Fortune and Windfall are there to truly power out our Kaidel. And if we just happen to have our Merfolk out, our opponents won't draw, but we get a bunch of treasure. And that is Rograkh and Kydele. Like I said, very interesting pairing. Not a very common pairing if you look at EDH Rec. There's only 5 or 6 decks at time of recording with this specific pairing. I think the potential is in fact very, very high. And like I said, if there's any cards I should probably swap out in order to bring it up to that cEDH level, if I'm not already there, leave it in the comments. Let me know what we need. There's lots of cards I considered, including Mana Vault. Decided I didn't need the Mana Vault. I couldn't justify putting it in because it wasn't going to help me get to the win con, shall we say. Definitely looking for suggestions. So put those right down there in the comments. And until then, I think our next deck, we're going to go with, I don't know if it's a classic or not, but let's go with a recently reprinted Commander that I haven't built yet. I'm super enthused to tackle it. Hoping Although I don't know if it's going to be as fun to build as these guys were, because this was a lot of fun to put together, honestly. Anyways, have a good night, everyone, and we'll catch you again next time.